Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Come Back to Love Radio. Every time I say that, I hear the audience like making lots of noise and sound in the background. I'm your host, Robin Vogel, and I am so happy to have here today one of my very dearest friends, Dr. Charlie Verge. And now the audience also goes wild in the background. Thank you to everybody who's listening for participating in that. Anyway, Charlie is, how do I introduce you? I've known you for so long now. I'll say some things about you. I know you're a psychologist. You've been ordained as a minister. You are a spiritual teacher in my awareness and my eyes, and you lately have been a certified facilitator for Access Consciousness and doing some incredible, magical, and miraculous work in the world. And I'm so happy to have you here for the second episode of this newly launched radio show to get the good word of love out into the world in a lot bigger way, which is definitely my mission in life with my business of the same name, Come Back to Love. So today, I am really excited to talk with you about all of the incredible things you've been doing lately, but especially in the last maybe 4 or 5 months, you've been focusing on these classes that have to do with relationship and intimacy and connection and communication and creation. And the classes, I've participated in most of them, and they're really different. And today I got an email from you that you sent out to your list, and it said, "Are you different? I am." And that to me is kind of the perfect lead in to what we're going to talk about today, or who knows where this conversation will go, but certainly with the backdrop um, of creating relationship in a different way than our culture and families and whatever have led us to believe is a good way or bad way or whatever. A way. So do you want to take a moment and say anything else about yourself? I
Oh
shared
no,
about you, but
it was a beautiful welcome and a beautiful intro, and thank you, thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. So what did you mean when you asked the question in the email that said, "I am different. Are you?"
What a great question. Um, what a great question that you just asked me. What a great question it was that I put out in that email.
Yes.
Uh, and I had never thought of it this way until we just had this interchange right now. But your work is all about come back to love. And what if that's really coming back to you?
Mhm.
What if it's really coming back to loving yourself greater than you ever have before?
Yes.
And what if loving yourself is, first of all, acknowledging and honoring that you are different, that you are different than any other being on this planet, that you were made and constructed differently. Everything about you is different. And that being a totally unique and different being means honoring that, loving that, caring for that, and creating a life from that. Like, do you love yourself enough to create the life that that being would be happy in, that that being would be truly enjoying? That's what that question means.
I love that. And it honestly, it brings me way back to, gosh, it brings me back almost, dare I say, almost 40 years. Oh God. I know I only look 25, so how is that possible? But
I was going to say,
yeah, like, brings me back to the womb. No. It brings me back to like sometime in my mid 20s, and so it's not 40 years, so let's say it's 30 years. Um, to a time when in my life, my friends were had graduated from college and were getting jobs and were trying to find their husbands. All my in this case, female friends looking for a partner that's male to find their husbands. And they were all like, and I'm not, making them right or wrong. It it's just what was happening. And at the time, for me, it was so perplexing. Like I didn't expect it. I didn't understand it, and I wasn't in the same mindset as they were. And I was kind of shocked. And I think I was shocked that I wasn't thinking the same as they were. And I was shocked that they were thinking about it. I was actually just thinking about like how to have fun. Like, what should
Dare
I
you?
do?
How dare you?
I know. Exactly. I was like, what can I do now? Yes, I need to make money because I'm going to live on my own now and I'm going to, have an apartment with friends or whatever it was. So I was thinking about money and how to make it so I could pay my rent and eat. But I was mainly thinking about how to have fun and the things to do to have a good time. And it was really honestly so surprising. And I I think I stayed very quiet about it, like I just was like, "Oh, I didn't talk about it." Yeah, I didn't want to tell them I was not thinking the same thing and I didn't want to stand out. Um,
You
and
didn't want judgment.
say it again.
You didn't want their judgment.
I didn't want their judgment. I probably also didn't want my own judgment,
Ah,
self also, because I was like, wait, is something wrong with me that I'm not like on this bandwagon of, trying to find my husband. So anyway, it just reminds me, and then it also reminds me of other things that I have felt different about. And I around like monogamy and long-term relationship and those things all sort of fell into place in my mind right around that time, maybe. And and I just remember feeling like I must be the only one. Now I think a lot of people have these, thoughts, but they don't want to say it. I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, well, there's such a pressure in this world um, to find your peeps
Mm,
right now, and maybe always has been, to find your reference groups, and that will provide you with happiness. That
mm,
if you find your, if you grew up in a more straight world and you're not straight, then to find your non-straight friends
mm.
or your non-straight partner or whatever is your thought about where you belong. And there's a lot that can be said for that. There's a lot of empowerment that can come from that and good things. Ultimately, it will not give you the happiness in your life you're looking for because the only reference points you can ever look for is you. And when you start acknowledging you and honoring who you are. Like I've been in lots of reference points where like I was like other people in that group in a certain way, like they were all therapists,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Or they were all like I was a hippie in the 60s, so like they were all hippies,
mm,
right? Or when I went um, and taught in an alternative college, like we were all alternative.
mm.
But you can feel more lonely in those places than you can any place because you're supposed to then be like them. But ultimately, you're you. Ultimately, it comes back to honoring truly who you are and caring enough about you and committing enough to your life to say, what truly is going to make me happy?
Yeah.
In any area of life. in your work, not only in relationships, but in your work, to truly have the courage to ask yourself, what kind of work will truly make me happy? And then in your relational life, like what kind of relationships are going to work truly for me? And really start asking yourself that question and starting to look at what in your life is going to true. I know for myself that, like you were talking about coming out of college and looking for, you know, looking around for a reference point, and you were looking for fun, and everybody else was looking for husbands. I have been married 3 times in this lifetime, all of which I honor tremendously. But the first one I think was based on fear of not of being alone, being the only one in my peer
Mm.
group who wouldn't be mated. The second one was out of pressure in that my girlfriend at the time really wanted me to marry her.
Got a ring on it.
And the third one was a different kind of fitting in because I thought, oh, I better get a child soon because everybody's having children. So I better find somebody to have a child with. So I don't think it was until my late 40s, early 50s that I really started asking myself this question. And only now I'm asking it even more deeply than ever before. What truly works for me in
Mm.
relationships? And
Yes.
to honor me and to create friendships, relationships, and even intimate partnerships if I choose so, or not.
Mhm. Right.
Like what truly works for you, and to honor that. And then once creating that, if you choose to create that, like honoring yourself on an ongoing basis. It's not just a one-time thing. Like I honored myself in my choice of this person, but it's going to be a constant updating of that because we are always changing and always growing and needing to always honor who we are now and loving that, and then allowing the other to be them,
Hmm.
truly honoring who they are and not having the need that they have to fit into your reference points, that they have to live life the way you decide that they have to live their life. What kind of relationships would we have in this world if we no longer had to fit into somebody else's needs for how we are to be, and they no longer had to fit into our needs for how they had to be? What if we could relax that? Do you think that would give more freedom and fun and joy and expansion and even greater sex?
Hmm.
Would create more blah and heaviness and judgment and all of that, which we seem to create a lot of now.
We do. Wow, so many potent things in there, and I want to bookmark this last piece because of this last piece that you just said is a really important topic and discussion I want to have. Before we have it, I want to go back, rewind just a moment to that what feels to me like this tension between belonging, like this innate desire and almost requirement we have for ourselves to feel a sense of belonging. And you described, and I also described, uh, choices that we make in honor of wanting to belong. And at the same time, that is not necessarily honoring who we truly are as an individual and unique being. So it feels like there can be tension between those two things. And I think, I know for me, it was similar to what you described. Like I made some choices and then I got there and I was like, oh, this isn't me. So I just wonder about that. Like how, let's say we have listeners in their 20s, which, we probably do, or early 30s that are right in that space before you kind of recognize, oh yeah, I need to be like really honor and be true to myself. This desire to belong is so strong and it can override, right? And then you get there and you're like, oh, as you said, I feel alone. I don't feel connected to they're all therapists, but they're not my peeps, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take one step back because I think the most primary thing, even before we talk about relationships, is to live a life getting out of judgment, getting out of right and wrong. And like we're all kind of navigating life, trying to get it right and trying to avoid getting it wrong. We've been taught that in this world.
Mm,
And in that, we create a lot of unhappiness because if you're functioning from any form of judgment, you're going to create something that's going to not work, something that's going to be laden with judgmentalness, right?
mm,
So what if we could like honor ourselves so much is that we started going on a life path of getting out of judgment?
mm,
Like, what if there is no wrongness? What if wrongness is a lie?
mm,
Like, what if you do choose to belong? That's not wrong.
mm.
Like, we never know what a choice creates till after we've chosen it. You never know. You're always guessing. Like, am I going to like this dress? Am I going to like this tie? Am I going to like this thing? And you take it home and you look in the mirror and you go, oh, what was I thinking? That was terrible. You get married and you go, what was I thinking? That was terrible. You have sex with somebody, you go, what was I thinking? That was terrible. You didn't know ahead of time. If
So,
you knew that it was going to suck, you probably would have chosen it. But that's the way we grow through our choices. What if we gave ourselves permission, first of all, to make lots of choices that
mm,
then teach us and get more clear about what really truly works for us? So
mm,
there's nothing wrong about moving into where you think you belong or finding a belonging and so forth, and then finding out that you don't. As long as you give yourself the amount of caring and kindness that won't keep you stuck there,
yeah, right.
it allows you to pick up and say, okay, that was great in certain ways it wasn't. Now what do I choose? And honor you enough to keep choosing and keep growing and keep choosing into who you are now. Because you're
Mm,
not 8 anymore, and you're not 18, and you're not 38, and you're not like me, 58. You're not, I'm not even, I'm getting closer to 78. It's like you keep growing and changing, but what if we allow ourselves and everybody to grow and change and
mm.
choose based on who we're becoming?
Mm. My whole body relaxes when you ask that question, and when I take in the receiving of that invitation. I just feel like my whole body just relaxes. I hope the listeners who are listening feel similar to that, that that's a real possibility.
I have to keep saying that to myself. It's not,
Mhm.
we're all teaching what we need to learn. And
Sure.
I'm certainly here preaching what I need to actually practice. And
Right.
so
Same.
the reason I do this work is that it keeps me into that consciousness of
Hmm.
honoring myself now and honoring others that I don't judge them when they make choices that I knew ahead of time in my little knowing, oh, that's not going to work for them. No, allow the people in your life to make choices that they're going to grow from.
Mm,
And you don't know what it's going to choose, what it's going to create either. None
right.
of us know until we all make the choices and then we discover that worked way better than I thought it would. That worked far less than I thought it would.
Yeah. I think you brought up a big point that I'm going to highlight before we take a commercial break in a moment. And that is that we're allowed to change our minds. And that's a mindset. That's a real mindset and an invitation to myself and to the people, to everybody to know that you can actually change your mind. There's a lot of wrongness in our culture about changing your mind, from changing your order on a menu to changing relationships, to everything in between. There's some cultural norm out there that, says like you've got to stick to it, you know. Stick to itiveness is like a high value, you know.
And as you know, this tool, I could mention this great tool of living in 10-second increments
Yes.
from access consciousness that, you know, I like to say to myself, in these 10 seconds, I choose this.
Hmm.
And, of course, it's 10 seconds is only a metaphor for allowing yourself in this 10 moments, in these 10 minutes, in these 10 weeks, I'm choosing this.
Yes.
Let's see, maybe something else shows up 10 seconds, 10 moments, 10 weeks, 10 years from now. It would allow me then to say, in the next 10 seconds, I choose this.
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful tool. Let's highlight that for our listeners that they can make choices uh, that are just in the moment for this amount of time, for this 10 seconds. And in another moment, there's another awareness that, might shift that to something else. So let's pause here for our commercial break. I have so many things I want to follow up with, and I look forward to coming back to you and us in just a moment. So welcome back. This has been such a rich conversation, and I feel so energized and enthusiastic about everything we've talked about so far. Because actually, myself, I've spent the last almost 4 years looking at these things. I've spent many, many more years looking at relationship and intimacy and sexuality, etc. But from the lens of access consciousness, which is quite different in the last 4 years or so, I've really been looking at things in a different way. It's opened up my mind, opened up things that were very defined, and there's a lot of conclusions I had about life and love and relationship. And now I'm just in question about all of it. And at the same time, it's really given me so many gifts. The teachings and the tools have given me personally so many gifts when it comes to, I mean, we were just talking about changing our minds. That is something I hold actually as a very high value because I'm honoring myself. If I choose something for 10 seconds or 10 days and I make another choice, it's because I'm going inside and tuning in and saying, like, is this in alignment for me? And I have a personal goal of wanting to be as much in alignment with my being, with my soul, as I possibly can be in my life. So I'm always striving for that, and it's ongoing, of course. And I get it wrong and I get it right, and it doesn't matter, but it's it's something I'm aware of. And so let's get back to this piece around not judging and not judging the other. And what would it take to be in allowance? And this could include, right, a romantic, whatever, lover, partner. Also includes our kids, our parents, our siblings, our neighbors, our everybody that we're in some kind of relationship with, where, what would it take to be an allowance of who they are and their choices? And what would it be like to receive that?
Wow. A great invitation and a great question. But, you just said like asking that question, like when we ask a question, it invites us to a new possibility.
Right.
And, um, so we tend to move towards conclusions so quickly in this world. We tend to like conclude this is the way things are, this is the way thing has to be, this is the way it's going to be for the rest of my life or whatever. And that almost always kind of shuts down life. And
Mm,
when we shut down life, we shut down the flow of the energy that's going to be necessary for creation, for something to be more fun, to be more joyful, to be more expansive in our lives. So if we just ask the question, what would it take for anything?
mm,
Like you said, what would it take? Like, what would it take for us to have less judgment? Like if you just ask that question, it opens that possibility up. Like, what if you had nothing else but that particular question? What would it take for me to have less judgment in my life on me? You see, I'm one who believes that when you set a target like that through question, everything inside you and everything in the universe starts to move toward the creation of that.
Hmm.
So when you say, what would it take for me to have less judgment on me? And let's expand it and be less interested in other people's judgment of me.
Hmm.
And if you just ask that question, what would it take for that to happen? Like everything starts conspiring to
Hmm.
show you how to do that, how that works out. See, because the how is the universe's job. It's actually not a mental process. It's actually a question and receiving process. So you ask the question and you move into possibilities. You start things showing up differently because you ask the question.
Hmm.
Just ask the question, what would it take for me to have less judgment on me? What would it take for me to have less judgment on my partner? What would it take for me to have less of a reaction of their judgments on me?
Such big questions that we can, yeah. I mean, and I just want to emphasize the one of the things you said, which is the how is the universe, and that the universe, we ask the questions, and the universe then starts to kind of organize, reorganize around showing us. I mean, just that is a leap of faith or a paradigm shift, a mindset shift, because I don't know about you, but I had to work and still am working on like controlling things and, manipulating them and trying to get them the way I think I want them. And that's also a really big part of our culture, sort of making things happen. And, we're a big doing culture. So it's a relief, and I'm, glad we're stating it here for the world to hear, that the how is actually up to the universe. And however you define that, you might say God, you might say divine, you might say whatever you're going to say, however our listeners are holding that. And that for me, I learned it's a co-creation. Like I started using that word in my early 30s when I started doing some of this really deep work on myself, and I learned that, and I guess I'm still holding it that way, like the co-creation. It's me, I'm asking the question, and then I let go, and the universe, God, the divine, whoever, um, is is in charge of the how. To
Do you mean you don't have to control everything? We often think
Thank
that
God.
giving up control is less safe. Giving up control will make us vulnerable in a bad way. We often think that giving up control means we'll be passive, nothing. No, we don't take choice out of this.
Mm,
We
mm,
just give up controlling it all. Like, what if we can relax,
mm,
ask what would it take for anything? And what if then, when possibilities start to show up, we again honor who we truly are as a unique being and make the choices that honor and care for that being?
mm, mm,
Because if you're not trying to control, here's something that's really, really interesting to me. If I'm not trying to control the whole universe, way more possibilities show up for me than when I was trying to control it because I was narrowing it.
yes.
You stop controlling and I invite rather than control. So many different things start showing up. And then I use the honoring of me to make my choices in these 10 seconds
Mm,
of what would really work for me.
I love that. I love that. I always do hold in my awareness and talk about how, when we try to control something, it becomes very narrow and we have a definition and conclusion, and the universe can't really fit anything in there because it's such a small space, a contraction. And when we open up and ask a question, it opens up the world of possibilities. You just added another piece, which I again have sort of a visual of, is like then the options, the choices are kind of on this buffet table. And then we get to like pause and check in and feel. We can talk about the tool of light and heavy in a moment, but what's aligned, and then make the choice versus, given the array of possibilities. Yeah. And I think there's a distinction there around, well, just because the universe brings in or you become aware of 10 choices, it doesn't mean that all 10 are the most aligned choice for this moment. Yeah.
For sure. And what if you didn't judge your choices?
Mm.
What if you made choices that, you know, Dane here, one of the co-founders of Access Consciousness, is fond of saying he's made more wrong choices than most people have made choices.
Mm.
Uh, and I would say that's true for me too,
Mm.
is that I probably have made more wrong choices have made, than a lot of people have made any choices.
Choices.
Because I've really thrown myself into things and they turned out messy, way messier than I expected they would out into. But I didn't, well, I did judge it. And then I learned to stop doing that. I learned to not judge my choices, but to see them as my growth,
Hmm.
as
Yes.
as the way in which I was growing and learning as a unique being and allowing other to make their choices. And now, if we can just quickly bring this over to relationship, like
Yeah, that's where I was going. Yes,
relationship, because I
please.
could see the energy now of some of our listeners asking questions about relationship here.
Yes. Yes.
Like, what if you weren't controlling your partner? And what if they didn't have to be what you needed them to be?
Mm.
And what if you allowed them to be whoever they are? Allowed them to choose whatever they're going to choose. And what if you didn't make their choices wrong? What kind of space and energy would they experience from you if you gave them that space? That you were just going to allow them to be them, allow them to be with you however they wanted to be with you, and you didn't control that. Let me reverse it for a moment so you get the
Yes.
experience on the other end.
Yeah.
What if they were doing that for you? What if your partner was giving you full allowance of you to be uniquely you, to allow you to do anything you wanted to do, allow you to be any way you wanted to be, and allow you to be anything that you wanted to be with them? How would that land on you?
It's so spacious, isn't it?
It's sexy.
Yeah, it is.
There's room to breathe and play here.
Yes. Yes.
And all kinds of possibilities start showing up rather than I need you to be this way and you need me to be that way. And you're not this way for me. So I'm going to judge you for the way you're being. And I'm not the way that you're the way you say I need to be for you. So you're going to judge me and I'm going to probably judge me too. And then we're all locked in this prisons of judgment
I know.
rather than the space that we were just talking about, inviting people into a greater space of allowance for ourselves, however we show up, and allowing them to show up however they show up.
So, what would you say? First of all, that's just so spacious. And again, so relaxing. Like the energy is just so calm when I feel into that. What would you say to somebody who says, but I'm not getting my needs met?
Yeah.
It's a very common. as we both know, having worked with couples for many, many years, both of us in our individual practices years ago, it's a very common thing that people say, and it's a way, it's a lens that people are using in relationship uh, to gauge how they feel or to make meaning of something or make something relevant.
Well, I would start with what will probably sound like a little bit of a harsh answer. It's not intended harsh, it's intended caring. And that is, how is that working out for you?
Hmm.
I mean, not in a how's that working out for you, but
Right, right.
like how is that?
Yeah,
Like dwelling on your needs not being met, how does that work out for you? How are you being with you and with them, with that as a predominant consciousness? I'm not getting my needs met. And how is that consciousness of you not getting your needs met landing on them? And
right.
how are they responding to that? Does it make them want to give more towards what you say you need or less?
Mm.
Like, if I were to say to you, listener, right now, I need you. I need you. I need you to do this. I need you to pay more attention to me. I
Gosh.
need you to be with me more. I need you to listen to me more. I need you to love me more. I need you to hold me more. Are you feeling closer to me or pushed away?
Charlie, I have to go now. I think we're out of time. You know what? We are going to take a commercial break right in this moment. So we're going to let our listeners
We're
sit
going to leave
with that
them on that
energy.
cliffhanger?
Yes,
Oh my
and we'll be
God.
right back.
I need more time.
So I wonder how that was for the people listening to sit with that heaviness of need. I was about to I was sort of trying to crawl away. That was so heavy. So
Yeah,
heavy.
it is. Need. And you understand where that all comes from, but like need, when we sit within the consciousness of need, it really creates a heaviness, like you were saying, a heaviness in us, a heaviness in our partners.
Mm.
Um, and then they respond in their needs. Like, I need to get the hell out of here. I need to get away from you, is what I need to do. No, you can't. I need you. No, I need to get away, And we get into this pursuit distance cycle kind of thing from what we used to talk about from the olden days in couple stuff. Um, See, it's counterintuitive, but the structure of need makes you less than who you are and controls who they have to be.
Yes.
And when you allow yourself to let go of it, it's a real courageous caring of yourself. Like, what works for me? Does it work for you? That's what I was saying. Does it work for you to be in all that need? It doesn't. So when you relax it and let it go, what would it take for me to just give up all this need and see what happens?
Such a
And
big.
invite whatever the universe wants to show up between me and this person. And to take a breather from that.
Right.
Take a breather from judging how they're supposed to be with you. And see when I've done that with people, all kinds of new things start showing up.
Mm.
Like all new possibilities, because my partner is no longer experiencing the burden I'm placing on them to have to be a certain way to meet my needs.
Right.
Then they start showing up the way they would like to show up, and it actually starts showing up more in terms of fulfilling what I thought was my needs. Or it doesn't.
Hmm. Mm.
But then you really get to look at you and say, you start to honor you.
Mhm.
Okay, See, the first breakup you should ever have with somebody, if you're thinking of breakup, is break up with your needs.
Mm, love that.
Before you end up breaking up with somebody, break up with your needs for a period of time. Practice it
Mm-hmm.
and see what that does. See if that it brings in new space, new energy, new love,
Mm-hmm.
new excitement, new possibilities. If it doesn't, then again, in these 10 seconds, does this really work for me? And honor yourself. Sometimes you can look at this and you can say, you know what? This isn't going to work for me. And then you start looking for in life, how do I create something new for me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But first, before you do that, how can I create something new between me and this person?
Yeah, it's such a big question that it can be a hard pill to swallow. And like you said, it's meant from a place of caring. And I think when couples are at really towards the space where they feel like they're almost done, like why not try? Why not invite this kind of question or this kind of practice where you break up with your needs first and take the pressure off and see what shows up in that space? Because, like you said, when somebody's there saying, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that, and I'm not getting it, it just, what does the other person on the receiving end do? They back away. And it's, of course, the opposite of what the person wants. They're going this direction. I need, I need, I need. And then the other person's like, "What?" And then they go away when what we're looking for is some kind of coming together in the same space. So why not take the pressure off?
And could I just invite people who are in that space, the space of considering breaking up with somebody? Could I invite you into releasing the conclusion you may have that
Mm.
your partner could never change?
Yes, please.
Because that conclusion creates that reality.
Yes.
And so, with that conclusion in your head, it's unlikely that even if you try breaking up with your needs, you will ever see any change in them because you've already got a conclusion that precludes the possibility that you will see it if it shows up.
Right. That's right. Yes, and that's another big one, right? I mean, and again, just expanding it out a little bit to, for those of you that are listening that aren't in a romantic relationship or a partnership that in that form, like it shows up in all relationships. I have, there's friends that I've struggled with this with and releasing my own needs that I've placed on the friend or placed in the friendship. And then it just becomes wrong and I'm in judgment of it all the time. But if I let it go, if I let those needs go and I just say, what's in this space? What's here actually? Then other things can show up and the friendship is just so much more loving and caring of me and my friend. Yeah. And it's a big topic with parents as well, parents and children, you
And
know.
can we go back to where one of the places we started, and that is like a need supposes that there's wrongness.
Hmm.
A
Right.
need supposes, it presupposes that they're wrong for not doing something that you feel you need. It also presupposes that you're wrong for not being able to be happy
Mm.
unless you get that need fulfilled. It has all these kind of judgments in there of wrongness. Like, really? You mean if you don't get that need completely fulfilled, you are going to be happy? Would you question that for a moment? Because is that really caring for you? Because true caring for you is taking the space of kindness towards your happiness, regardless of how others are and aren't. Like if you outsource your happiness to somebody else, you will never be happy.
Right. That's right. Which does bring us back to the very beginning when we mentioned the words come back to love, the name of this show, the name of my business, the name of my mantra, who's the who that you're coming back to love with? And we are talking about coming back to love with ourselves first and foremost. We're going to take
It
another
is
commercial. Go ahead. Well, we're going to take another commercial break in a moment, but
okay.
I want to notice that you've used the word caring several times in this conversation, and I love that. And I want to talk a little bit more about that as we come to the last segment. So we'll be right back.
Yeah.
So we're here again with the final few minutes of this episode of Come Back to Love Radio on Dream Vision 7 with Dr. Charlie Verge. And one of the things I said before we took that last commercial break was that I've noticed several times in our conversation you using the word caring. And I want to say, and I feel like it's a little bit sad to say this, it's a word that people aren't using very much, honestly. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that. Like you've mentioned a few times, caring for yourself, caring for your partner, caring for the people in your life. Like it feels so deep and heart centered, just the word and the energy around the word.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that to our attention. I didn't realize I was using the word that much, but I think I have shifted over a lot to using that word more because of all the reasons you just beautifully, outlined. Um, and I mean, I do use the word love, but love has so much on it. We've all been hurt by love and betrayed by love. And so finding that space of love sometimes for ourselves is complicated. But the
Yes.
space of caring has less complications with it. And sometimes when we use that word for ourselves, there's a sweetness that comes in, there's a kindness that
Mm,
comes that, like, how do I care for me?
mhm,
What would it take for me to have greater caring for me than I've ever had before?
mm,
And what does true caring look like? And for me, true caring starts with acknowledging and honoring, like acknowledging yourself. Like
mm,
we're all looking for validation out there. But again, if we're outsourcing our well-being or our caring from somebody else to us, we never seem to get fulfilled. But
mm,
the fulfillment is when we really bring the caring and by acknowledging that, you know what? I'm a pretty cool, unique being, that
mm,
there really isn't anybody else like me. And I'm not wrong for being me.
mhm.
One aspect of caring for me is stop making ourselves wrong for anything.
Yes.
That doesn't make you a narcissist. Narcissists are people who feel wrong all the time inside themselves and then have to blow themselves up on the outside. This is the opposite of this.
Mm,
This is about acknowledging that simply you are okay, the beautiful, the way you are,
mm,
just being.
beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for commenting on that and emphasizing that the value of caring for ourselves in that way. It's so, so, so loving. And does lead us right to the gift that you generously are offering our listeners. Do you
Yeah,
want to?
I would love to
Yeah,
offer the listeners one of my classes for free.
yeah, that'd be
If
great.
anybody would like to hear more of this, just go to Dr. Charlie Verge. You see it right up there, without the little period after the Dr. drcharlieverge.com. and that's my website. And if you scroll down, there'll be under classes, you'll find a class called The Magic of Allowance. And if you click on there and just use the coupon, the free coupon for this group, um, allow different,
Hmm.
all
Yes.
in caps, allow different, and you will have the class for free.
Awesome. And for those of you just listening while you're driving or walking on the radio station, no worries, because you will see the link to the class and the coupon code in writing, and it'll be a lot easier. You can just click on it. And I just want to say I participated in that class, The Magic of Allowance, and wow, does it create so much space just listening and taking in all the gifts that Charlie offered during that class is so beautiful. And allowance is the most caring thing we can do for ourselves.
And can I make one other invitation
Oh,
here?
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
In a few weeks, I'm offering a major dive in. If
Yes.
somebody out there really would like to dive in hugely into this stuff, a full 3 day class called
Yeah.
Relationships Done Different. And you can find that on the website as well if you're really curious to go take a look.
Yes, 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 yes. That class is going to be amazing, life-changing, love-changing, ready to rewrite your love story and all the things that we talked about today that just make being in relationship with ourselves and relationship with others so much more fulfilling and more fun. So, yes, much more fun. We're back to that. Yes. So, no worries about the information you'll be receiving in. I just want to thank Dream Vision 7, and I want to thank you, Charlie, for being here today. And this was just such a rich conversation, so deep. We're going to suggest you listen to it over and over again because there's so many things you can explore. And I'm really, really grateful. Thank you for
Thank
spending
you,
this.
Robin. It's been totally a joy for me to be with you. Always is a joy to be with you, my friend.
Thank you. Lots of love, everybody. See you next week on Come Back to Love Radio, Dream Vision 7.